All right, next up we have Meredith Rivin. She's from the Dr. John D. Cooper Archaeological and Paleontological Center from Santa Ana, California. And she's doing a talk on the Cooper Center, development of a new curatorial facility and volunteer training program.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm here to talk about where I work, which is called the Cooper Center. It's a brand new facility. We just opened really full-time about a year and a half ago, and so we've been building a lab, we've been dealing with collections, and we've been recruiting volunteers and students and interns like crazy to try and start to deal with that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Cooper Center and what the collections are that we're dealing with, and then also about what I've done to start training these volunteers so that with a very, very small staff we're able to accomplish as much as possible. So the Orange County Collections, I'm from Orange County, California, which is about 30 miles south of LA, about 10 minutes from Disneyland. And our collections are actually mostly a result of paleontological mitigation and archaeological as well. And this legislation in California, especially in Orange County, goes back to about the mid-1970s. And the result of that, Orange County is mostly a master planned community. Irvine, California is, I think, the largest master planned community in the world. And so that kind of gave us a really unique and strange opportunity to control the development of a place, and the result of this was very, very rapid development in the 70s and 80s through almost entirely fossiliferous deposits that were all monitored by professional mitigation paleontologists and archaeologists. And so because of that, a ton of material was collected in a very, very short amount of time. And Orange County doesn't have a natural history museum, so there was really no structure in place to deal with the amount of material coming in. And there was a 30,000 cubic foot facility, a warehouse that was given by the county to house these collections, and things were basically dumped there for about 30 years. And it was managed by volunteers, and these volunteers include professional paleontologists and archaeologists, but they weren't paid. They were a group that was trying to raise money, trying to develop a natural history museum, and to take care of the collections that were coming in faster than they knew how to deal with them. And this went on through about the mid-1990s, and at that point the warehouse facility became full. The legislation was still in place that the material needed to be collected, so a lot of it went to the Los Angeles County Natural History Museum, the San Diego County Natural History Museum, and a number of mitigation firms actually is still holding material that was collected during this time. We estimate that we have over 2 million artifacts and specimens. In addition to this 30,000 cubic foot material, we've added another building and a half, and there's about 16,000 cubic feet still out in the mitigation firms in different places that are being held, waiting for us to be able to pull it in. And this collection goes back 180 million years, basically. It spans every major time period since the Jurassic, with a pretty big gap in the Oligocene, although we do have a few Oligocene fossils, so I can still say that. But it's really quite an amazing project and quite an amazing place to work, just because of the huge volume of material that nobody has looked at really since the Monitor found it on a construction site in 1975. And so the birth of the Cooper Center really happened about 1999. The county realized that they really, really do need to do something with this collection. There have been people pushing and fighting for them to start to curate it and take care of it and get it out to the scientific community so that it can be studied. And in 1999, the county sent out a request for proposals on developing a curation plan. And so Cal State Fullerton University came on, and Dr. John Cooper, you see in the picture here, and an archaeologist, Phyllis Eisentraut, wrote the model curation program. And this was a 4-year project. And as part of this, they reorganized the collections. They did a lot of work in the collections, started preparing some of the jackets, including this surprise here that John is sitting by, which is now at the LA County Natural History Museum being studied by their curator, is a walrus skull. This jacket was marked as having something like whale ribs in it, something really not interesting. He decided to open it up, and it turns out there's this new species of walrus that's in this jacket. So we have no idea what's in the collection at this point. So Dr. Cooper stayed on and managed the collection as a volunteer after the end of this contract in 2003 until his rather sudden death in in 2007. And at that point, they basically shut down the facility. Nobody was taking care of it. They kind of locked the doors. You know, people went in and swept every once in a while, but they weren't sure what to do and didn't want anybody messing around the collections that didn't know what they were doing. This was probably a good idea. And so in 2009, they set out another request for proposals to actually manage the collection now, to come in with a full-time staff and to start to take care of these collections. And again, Cal State Fullerton bid for this project, and it was awarded. And so 2009, the facility was named the Dr. John D. Cooper Archaeological and Paleontological Center, and Fullerton came on to manage the collection. I was actually hired in October of 2010, so I came in just after this point. So this is what our lot looks like. This warehouse in the back is we call it the Indiana Jones warehouse because it kind of has that feel when you walk into it. So this is the main warehouse that was established in 1978, and it was full to capacity and overflowing by the early 1990s. In fact, you can see some of the overflow here. These jackets actually, and many others, were sitting out open in the parking lot until Dr. Cooper came on and made them build these overhangs. We have over 370 unprepared jackets in our collection. We don't have dinosaurs, but they're not the only big thing. Most of our collections are marine mammals, so we have a lot of whales. So they're really giant jackets. In fact, these two 40-foot containers just came on, and these contain about 16 whale skeletons in jackets. These blocks out here are actually from an Eocene site. It was an Eocene bone bed, later Eocene, about 40 million years. And we've prepared 2.5 of them and have about 25 taxa that have come out of these two bone beds from a formation that hasn't been studied before, so it's very exciting. We have some students working on it. And so you can see we're on about a 3.5-acre lot. The Cooper Center occupies this building in the front. We call this appropriately the Yellow Building, which is a World War II era barn, and has no insulation. The cats come and go. It's a terrible place. We're working on ways of moving collections out of this building and into a new space soon. And then the warehouse here. This is actually a pretty solid structure. Luckily in California, we don't have to worry about freeze thaw. We don't get a whole lot of rain, so we have that working for us, thankfully. So this is what the inside of those buildings look like, and pretty much how they've looked since Cooper was working here and since material has been put into these warehouses. This is looking down the main aisle of the Indiana Jones building. There's a jacket under here that's over 20 feet long, and the shelving was actually built around the jacket. So we'll have to prepare all these jackets in order to get down to this one. Either that or get a very small, nimble preparator that can get in there. And that contains one whale skull, and so that's why they made it so big, because you can't cut a skull in half to jacket it up. And various other jackets on here are from that same whale. There's some walruses, I know, and other things. And you can see the boxes that are just kind of stacked up along the sides here. Actually, when I started, there were preparation projects that were just left on the tables when John died, and hadn't been touched since. So it was really kind of an interesting project. He was a meticulous note taker, which is wonderful. I encourage you all to be the same way. He printed out every email he ever got. So I have really good records of what he was doing when this happened, and the volunteers that were working for him. You can see jackets kind of hanging out over the aisleways here. Again, we're in earthquake country. This is not a good situation. And then this is the Yellow Building. Here we've done some earthquake retrofitting with the netting to hold boxes in. And these are those Eocene jackets that are out in the parking lot. So when I came in 2010, it was an exciting time. This is the first time that we've really put money into the collections and the storage of the collections, and everybody's kind of really 100% forward. We're gonna take care of this and do this the right way. So this building was in the front. You can see it here. When we were actually working on it. It was a 2-story building, and we gutted it down to the floor, down to the dirt really, so that we were able to build exactly the lab that we felt we were going to need. I came in when everything was already demolished, and the geology department is the one that is running this, and so they don't have any vertebrate paleontologists on staff or any paleontological preparators. They didn't really know what they were doing. the original plans had kind of permanent lab benches, a fume hood, some lights, that sort of thing. And I said, no, we can't do that. We're going to have to think of another way to do this within a very limited budget. Orange County was the first county to go bankrupt, and they're still kind of hurting over that. So they're very cautious with their money, but plus it's a very conservative county. You can see the yellow building back here in the back, and then that's the warehouse with those 40-foot trailers in the front. So this was the floor plan for the inside of that front building when we first started building. Some of these things have changed a little bit since we actually built the space, but it kind of has stayed in this layout. And so you can see that back here was where they had a fume hood originally, and 4 offices. We've already outgrown that space. We have 3 permanent staff and 2 part-time staff, plus a number of volunteers and other people that are working with us. And so that's something we're already looking to try to expand our office space. A very, very small climate-controlled storage space, but it's a start. And we are looking to be able to expand soon, so we're still filling in this space. A lot of those materials that are in the warehouse are packed in newspaper and beer flats and all kinds of random things, so we have to recurate everything and freeze it and stuff before we move it into this space anyway, so it's been kind of a slow task. We were lucky and able to get the air compressor and dust collector pushed outside, so we're not listening to it because none of the offices are insulated. And you can see these are folding tables. We were actually able to upgrade that a little bit, but it was important to me to be able to move things around. When you have 25-foot jackets that you know you're going to have to deal with, having built-in lab benches didn't seem like a good idea to me. And then we have this kind of receiving area. Since mitigation is still going on in the county, we have the potential of receiving very large collections on an ongoing basis. So this is what the inside of the lab looked like right after we finished building it. So this is our main prep area. It's not huge, but it works really well for us. We have one of those big, large meter-squared Eocene jackets back here. So this is kind of a open space where we can drop a jacket, and everything is dropped down from the ceiling. And you should have seen the plumber's face when I told him I needed compressed air dropped down from the ceiling. He wasn't too happy about it. But these are copper lines that actually run from the air compressor, which is just outside this wall here. And it runs through a number of filters and then gets piped through the lab, and each one of these has a regulator on it, which is very handy for running multiple tools. We're able to do that. The hoses aren't ideal. They're kind of floppy and kind of rigged up to stay off the floor like this, but we're kind of working on it. Even the electrical drops down from the ceiling. We actually don't occupy the entire building. It was leased out to county voter records, and so they're in a quarter of the building, which means we don't have a wall to work off of. It's just a chain link fence. So the engineering was really creative to try and get all this kind of infrastructure in without a solid wall to work off of. So we've got one wall back here, and that's it. This is our collections room here, and then the paleo office back here and an archaeo office over here. The best part of this building is that we're able to drive in these jackets with a forklift from the back lot. It's really easy. We just move the furniture out of the way and drive a jacket, and we actually have 2 big jackets that we're working on now. We can just roll these tables out of the way. They are hydraulic tables. Unfortunately, this is as low as they get. I really need something that gets down closer to the floor. I don't find a lot of need to make tables higher. But it's nice they're on wheels. And this is what the lab looks like today. With a staff of just 3 people, we're able to manage over 40 volunteers that donate at least 4 hours a week. And so it's a bustling place, which is really great, actually. And they come from all walks of life. We have 2 students back here, 3 high school interns that did a summer with us last year, and then somebody just from the community. She's retired. She's actually an artist, and she makes a great preparator. And so you can see these hoses are all being used. The students are learning how to cast and mold. We're able to do a lot in what's a pretty small space. We're also kind of growing and trying to attack things in a new way. So casting and molding is great, and I have a lot of fun doing it, but we're also looking for a faster way to be able to do 3D replication of a lot of the fossils and the artifacts. Actually, archaeological artifacts are even more important because of the NAGPRA, the Native American Graves Repatriation Act. A lot of artifacts need to be buried again because they're considered ceremonial, and the Native Americans in the area don't want them in museums. They want them to be where they were laid to rest. And so we're able to scan things quickly, whereas I just did a mold of a marlin skull that took me about a month and a half. We could do the same thing in about an hour and a half on the 3D scanner. This is a Next Engine desktop scanner, and it cost about $5,000, so it was relatively affordable. It was donated to us by our local historical commission, and can do pretty fine scale. You can see the serrations on the edge of this megalodon's tooth. This was one scan, so ideally we would have had more time and would have scanned it in 360 directions and cut out the table that it's sitting on. But so this is just a really quick and dirty scan that we did before coming to this conference. So it can show you the kind of the quality that it's able to do. So again, this is our staff. That entire collection is managed by 3 people full-time, and that's our director, Dr. Jerry Lips, myself, and our archaeology curator, Janine Peterson. We also have 2 faculty curators which work from the Cal State Fullerton campus, mostly managing students and promoting research on the collections. So in order to kind of make the most of my time, we were able to recruit volunteers really quickly. Everybody wants to work in a paleontology laboratory, but managing all of those volunteers quickly became the only thing that I was doing. And there's a lot of work to be done in our collections. Being the only person besides the director, I'm the exhibit designer, I'm the collections manager, I'm a curator, a fossil preparator, a volunteer coordinator, you know, anything that needs to be done, there's just the 2 of us to do it, really. And so we both came up with a series of kind of mini training programs that the volunteers will be able to do. We call it a certificate of completion, just saying that they completed the training. It's not anything formalized, but it sure gives them a feeling of accomplishment, and lets us kind of distribute tasks among the volunteers that are trained to do the tasks. And so you can see that we have, I think, 5 different certificates that they can reach. The first is curation. Everybody that works in the lab is required to do what I call the curation training, which includes archival materials, kind of just general specimen handling. And they learn a lot about what's in the collection during this process as well. That's the only one I've actually had the time to finish and put into use with my volunteers, and so far it's been very successful. The next one I'll tackle will be the preparator, which is a much bigger task, and we'll have fewer of the volunteers going through that training. The docent training, I have some education interns that are coming in the summer that are going to help me to develop a docent program that we don't have a museum, so all of our outreach has to be kind of on an informal basis at various festivals and fairs and events in the county. And then the one I'm most excited about is a lead paleontology volunteer. I've been very lucky and had a volunteer that donates 40 hours a week, and he's young and enthusiastic, and he's good with computers, and you know, he's kind of an obvious person that I could have as a lead volunteer, that he's there a lot. He's really enthusiastic and reliable, and if he can help me start to manage some of the volunteers, and that frees up my time to work on other projects. And then paleontological analysis is something that's really important too, so that we have volunteers not only just kind of doing our busy work, but us actually also contributing to the body of knowledge that's created by this collection. And so these are kind of the basic requirements for each of these certificates. So the curator, I require 40 hours. That takes a long time when you're only donating 4 hours a week with vacations and everything else that come in between it. So they actually, you get really involved in an in-depth curation process. And most of this is unpackaging materials. These are all packaged as they were in the field. So we have things kept in egg cartons and things like that. So we really need to repackage things into archival material. So they learn about all sorts of different aspects of that, and that doesn't include the outside training that I also do. It looks like I'm going over, so I'll go on through. I have copies of this if anybody is interested in reading it and giving me some feedback also. I'd really appreciate that. They have a reading list that they have to complete, and then of course the hands-on training is the most important part. And so these are the tasks that they're doing as part of what I call curation. A lot of these you might think as preparator tasks as well, but I tie them all under to curation so that they have a good foundation before they start preparing on what glues they should be using, about how to stabilize a specimen, things like that. I think the best result of this is not only has the quality of work they're doing a whole lot better, they also have a much better sense of satisfaction since they know why they're doing it and what they're doing it for. So it's a relatively mundane task, copying down tags, repackaging material, but since I've started the training, people enjoy it a lot more, which is important because I want to keep my volunteers around for as long as possible. And I'm proud to say that in a short amount of time, in about a year and a half, we've already cataloged 25,000 specimens from our collection. It's hardly made a dent. We estimate about 1% of 2 million specimens and artifacts, but I think in a year and a half, it's a pretty good total and something we're very proud of. The volunteers also kind of go above and beyond what I'm doing. The volunteer I was telling you about before is Gabe Santos, and he's put up a YouTube channel so that we're able to do outreach with the other volunteers and with our high school interns without having a museum. So there's new shows almost every week on our YouTube channel that he's uploading, everything from scientist interviews to quiz shows, and it's a lot of fun, so check it out. We also had a big event in the county, Prehistoric OC. We had over 1,500 people show up to a festival, basically, of all things prehistoric in Orange County, Native Americans and paleontological. And we even had people show up in costume. And so, you know, it's a lot of fun. Our volunteers have really made what we do possible, and life is never dull when you have all these people here that are just here because they enjoy it completely. And so I can't say enough about the amount of time that I put into the volunteers. I've certainly got back. So that's all, if anybody has any questions.